Okay, so the line is live. Our lines are open and our audience are slowly joining us. It will give people a few seconds to make sure that they are able to connect with us. I just want to mention that we are also going live on Facebook. Perfect. Good morning, everyone here in the West Coast of the US. Good afternoon to our audience in Israel. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar where we are going to discuss the energy cyber topics, call for proposals, as you can see on the screen. Eitan, can you help me make sure that our speakers are on the screen? Perfect. My name is Sharon Vanek. I'm the Executive Director of the California-Israel Chamber of Commerce. We are a non-profit organization based in California with offices also in Israel, with a mission to support businesses and partners in our ecosystems to meet and discuss and talk about business opportunities. Before we start, and I'm going to introduce our audience and also our speakers, of course, today, I'd like to mention to the viewers at home or in the offices that we are also going live on Facebook. We are also recording this session, so if for some reason you have some connection issues or you want to watch that later on, you'll be able to find it on our YouTube channel. You have a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you have any questions for us, please don't hesitate to share your questions and we'll try to reply to them during the session today. If we cannot answer your questions today, we'll make sure to get back to you later on with some answers. So I'd like to start with introducing the speakers that we have here with us today. I'll start with Nate Mason. He is the Desk Officer for Israel in the Office of International Affairs at the US Department of Energy. Hi, Nate. Thank you for joining us from DC.
Hi, thank you for the invitation. As you mentioned, I'm responsible for Israel at the International Affairs section of the Department of Energy.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Eitan Yudilevich. Eitan, he's the Executive Director of the BERT Foundation and he's joining us from Israel. Hi, Eitan.
Hi, thank you for having me, Sharon. Great to be here.
Okay, fantastic. And our third speaker for today is Yarom. Roy is the Director in the, for Economy and Growth in the Israel National Cyber Directorate. Hi, Roy.
Hi, pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. As you said, the Israeli National Cyber Directorate in charge of promoting industrial initiatives, international technical collaboration, etc. Okay,
great. So before we start to talk about the cyber energy and this project, I'd like to start with you, Eitan. Just can you give us some brief introduction about the BERT Foundation? What's the BERT Foundation and how is that related to what we're going to talk about today?
Of course, thank you. So the BERT Foundation is the US-Israel Binational Industrial Research and Development Foundation. It's an organization that belongs to both the US and the Israeli government. Mm-hmm. It's been in place for quite a while and it deals with promoting cooperation between US and Israeli companies, R&D, innovation, for mm-hmm. mutual benefit. Now, about 2 years ago, the Department of Energy, the US Department of Energy, the Israeli Ministry of Energy, and the Israeli Innovation Authority asked the BERT Foundation to operate or actually manage the US-Israeli Energy Center. We are going to, I understand, we're going to further discuss the details of the center, but actually the US-Israeli Energy Center is a very different program, okay? It's not like the company-to-company cooperation that we usually fund at the BERT Foundation.
Okay, thank you, Eitan, for that. Definitely, we're going to talk about this specific cyber energy center. But I think before that, let's talk first of all about the Israel National Cyber Directorate. So this question is for you, Roy. Can you explain what is the role of that body? What are you doing there? How are you connected to all of this?
Sure. So the Israeli National Cyber Directorate is basically the lead agency in Israel in charge of protecting the civilian cyberspace. It was founded about in 2012 after the government decided that there is a need for an holistic, with an overall view of the issue to lead the national initiatives. Now, the INCD, it has two main objectives, shall we say. First, we are in charge, as I said, for securing civilian cyberspace, which is an operational role. Under this capacity, we are a regulator. We guide directly critical infrastructure, some in the energy sector, on how to defend themselves. We also guide other sectoral regulators how to regulate their own sectors. We regulate the market, services, professionals, products fields. We are also an operational entity. We have intelligence functions. We operate the national CERT, national incident response teams. And we are also a technological entity in the sense that we have our own R&D operations aimed at preparing solutions and tools and methods which are required on the national level and are not always available off the shelf. The final leg is the strategic arm from which I'm hailing. And our role is a bit different. As I said, the INCD has two roles. The second role is making sure Israel has the long-term capacities to defend itself and reap the benefits of the cybersecurity, which means that we cultivate the industrial base, innovation, academia, human manpower, skills, international relations, macro policy, all of the long-term capabilities and activities for the government of Israel in the civilian space. And under this hat, we are very glad and enthusiastic to support this initiative, which is basically, we see it as having the potential to facilitate a lot of how we would like things to progress in bilateral innovation efforts.
Mm-hmm. So Roy mentioned the initiative that we are going to talk about. Eitan, can you help us understand what is the initiative without going into all the details right now, but just to understand what's the energy cyber is all about?
Okay. So for that, let's start with a short description of the U.S.-Israeli Energy Center, okay? So the Energy Center was established about, as I said, about 2 years ago. It's actually quite a young initiative. Actually, it was originally authorized by Congress in 2014 and funded by the Israeli government in 2016. In essence, the idea is to support joint R&D between entities from the US and entities from Israel, all kinds of entities, universities, companies, research institutions in consortia. So the idea is to form a consortium that has a US lead and an Israeli lead with members from both countries and do joint R&D in 1 of 4 topics. Fossil energy, energy storage, energy water nexus, and cybersecurity for energy infrastructure. So for the first 3 topics, the decisions, the selections were made in March 2020, and those are already done. And this call for proposals is focused on the fourth topic, which is energy cyber, or more precisely, energy cyber for critical infrastructure. That's what, in essence, okay?
Okay, so with that, I want to ask you, Nate, can you describe, so we understand what's the Israel National Cyber Directorate, and we heard about BERT Foundation. I'm sure everybody knows what the US Department of Energy is about, but can you talk about the collaboration that you have with Israel in energy, and then we'll talk about cyber energy and that nexus between the two.
Sure. The U.S.-Israel relationship is as strong as ever, especially regarding energy cooperation. Israel is a strong and proven innovation partner with the United States. Bilaterally, we have deep cooperation on cybersecurity. Sorry, that's my cybersecurity of energy systems. Our technical experts are in frequent contact and attend each other's conferences and training events and share information. Hundreds of Israeli scientists visit Department of Energy national labs each year. Not everybody knows that the national labs in the United States are under the Department of Energy. They conduct research, share information on science and technology developments. Then there are broader economic ties. There are over 2,500 US companies in Israel employing 72,000 Israelis. And Israel is a top 15 foreign direct investment or foreign direct investor in the United States. One of the key developers of Israel's offshore natural gas resources is Noble Energy, a U.S. company that may soon be acquired by Chevron, another U.S. company. And on a separate technical collaboration program, BERT Energy has cumulatively over the past 10 years awarded around 50 projects, and 7 technologies have been commercialized, while awardees have attracted $450 million in follow-on investment. So both the commercialization of technologies and follow-on investment lead to economic development and jobs in both the U.S. and Israel. So that's just some of the cooperation. There are also the Eastern Mediterranean Gas Forum and all kinds of sort of broader policy collaboration.
Great. So before I ask you, Nate, about the pains and what you are looking for in this project or for this call for proposals, I want to ask Roy from your perspective. So we heard about the collaboration from the energy perspective. So Roy, can you tell us what's the importance you see in the US-Israel cooperation on cyber?
Sure. I'll state some obvious facts. Cybersecurity is probably one of the best examples of a dual-use technology relevant for public and private usage, which is an essential part of every country's national security these days, because it's so far-reaching and touches upon every aspect of life. A country which wishes to reap the benefits of the digital revolution, the digital age, the information age, on all aspects, military, economic, social, political, must be capable and have state-of-the-art technologies and capabilities. Now, Israel and the United States together, I think I'm throwing a number, but it must be roughly accurate, about 70%, I believe at least, of the capital which is funneled to innovation, startups and companies, is going either to the United States or to Israel. So both of these countries are practically at the moment are leading the pack in cybersecurity innovation, in industrial innovation. And we would like to keep it that way. I believe both sides. The energy sector, it symbolizes a critical sector, which is a prime example of why cybersecurity is important. For it to progress to the next level of efficiency and digitization and smart applications, cybersecurity needs to step up as the threats step up. Now, global competition is getting stronger. There are a lot who aspire to be leaders in those areas. And technological disruptions are also threatening to change the game. The introduction of fifth generation communications and artificial intelligence and better encryption and Internet of Everything. Now, all this affects and will affect the ability of the energy sector to protect itself and progress. Now, because cybersecurity innovation stems both from the public sector and the private sector, and because in both senses, Israel and the United States are very close and are very capable, we see this as an excellent opportunity to promote R&D efforts sponsored by the governments, and we hope that public assets will be able to be utilized in this project in order for the two nations, the two ecosystems, to make important steps towards preparing us in cybersecurity for the next era. The stakeholders put a lot of emphasis on readiness to machine learning algorithms and interoperability and the new regulations which are coming forth. We think this is essential, and we think that no ecosystems are better fitted to work together than the American and the Israeli, and we think it's a very exciting opportunity.
Okay, great. So you talked about the rising of threats and the critical infrastructure, and of course energy is only one part of critical infrastructures that we have, because there are also water and airports and so on and so forth. So energy is key for our daily life. Nate, can you share with our audience some of the challenges that the DOE finds in in critical infrastructure against cyber attack? What are you looking for?
Sure. Well, one of the basic challenges is that there are unique, what we call zero fail requirements for cyber in specific energy critical infrastructure areas. At the same time, much of our critical infrastructure was not designed with cybersecurity in mind. City planners and infrastructure managers saw relatively early the potential for remote management of dams, traffic signals, electrical grids, but didn't necessarily foresee the cybersecurity implications of these tools. The result is that there's a very wide spectrum of cybersecurity needs across different types of infrastructure with varying degrees of complexity and varying types of solutions. Moreover, some of this infrastructure is managed by the Department of Energy, some by other federal agencies, some by state or municipal governments, and still others by the private sector. As designated by the Presidential Policy Directive on Critical Infrastructure Security and Reliance, the Department of Energy is the energy sector specific agency leading federal efforts to enhance the reliability, security, and resilience of our nation's energy infrastructure. DOE also stewards the 17 national laboratories and all of the scientific and technical expertise they bring to bear on the issue of national cyber defense. Our national laboratories have accomplished groundbreaking work in cyber front to develop technology that ensures U.S. cutting-edge technologies. And additionally, they make these resources available across government, industry, and academia so that these public investments in state-of-the-art technologies generate the greatest possible intellectual, economic, and security benefits. The importance and variety of the challenge is part of the reason it's so important for us to leverage academia and companies to help us develop new tools and processes, which is, again, because of the heterogeneity of all of the different people we have to work with and all of the different kinds of challenges that we face.
Okay, so if I can summarize with your permission, and let me know if I missed anything. So the biggest picture is the zero fail, is make sure that nobody's getting in and making sure the ongoing operation of the energy facilities. Is that correct?
Sure.
Right. And then, of course, there is a problem that you have, you know, a variety of managements to the different energy facilities. So I guess you're also looking for to make sure that there are no pitfalls because you have so many players in managing those facilities.
Right. Just we have to work with essentially every kind of player, every level of government, every kind of institution that there is.
Mm-hmm. Can you give a specific example of something that, you know, a threat or something which is missing that you would love to see a solution there?
I could, but then our cybersecurity people would have me fired. They very don't want to talking about specific threats.
Okay, so you know what? I'll go to Roy with this question.
Threats, though.
Roy may
okay, so that's why I say let's move to Roy with a similar question. Can you describe in short what are the energy cyber topics that are included in this call for proposals? Because I guess essentially this is what people, you know, those consortiums eventually need to come up with some solutions. So we have to understand where are the pain points. What are you looking for? Okay,
first of all, everything which I'm about to say is well documented. The stakeholders worked very hard on defining exactly what are they looking for and what do they expect.
Great, so nobody's going to fire you by sharing this information.
No, maybe Eitan.
Go ahead.
Okay, so basically there are three types of activities which are covered by this initiative in cyber. The first is the development of tools and technologies, which is, it's a broad definition, you know, you'll have to dive deeper into the documents to see all sorts of examples for what it can be. But basically, tools and technologies which are aimed to, you know, new tools and technologies, which are aimed to protect the energy sector. Now, the emphasis is on systems which have very strong interoperability and ability to behave in an autonomous manner, being able to detect, identify, reject cyber incidents. There's a lot of emphasis on being machine learning ready. These tools must be able to utilize advanced algorithms of machine learning, be able to feed big data for analytic systems, and also have to be on sync with the all regulatory trends and rules in charge governing the use of data and communications and protocols in modern energy infrastructure. That's family one. First type of activity, development of tools and technologies. Now, the second type of activity is using more mature technologies and methodologies in order to create holistic solutions which are not maybe novel in the technological sense, but are providing for a novel usage, a novel way of protecting energy sector entities. So,
can you explain what do you mean by holistic solutions that are not necessarily technological ones?
No, there are technological ones. What I mean is that we are not talking about developing a new technologies with a low technological readiness level and doing heavy R&D. We are talking about taking tools which are already available, using them in a novel architecture, in a novel way, or in a novel paradigm, which will create for a new usage scenario, which is better than what we have known before. An emphasis was put on the utilization of novel simulators. for training
Okay.
done by the stakeholders. The third and final topic is cyber emergency preparedness and response. Now, here the stakeholders wanted to focus on the ability of energy entities not to prevent an attack, but to survive it, and making sure the business processes, which I'm not an energy expert, but you know, making electricity, distributing it, etc., are disrupted in a minimal way as possible and are back to normal as fast as possible. So this is a family of challenges or needs, which is containing the damage and recovering from the damage rather than preventing it. So these are the three overarching topics. And in the technical documents, you can find examples and illustrations of what sort of applications can be done under these topics, but it's free for all. I mean, there could be suggestions which are not listed over there.
Mm-hmm.
One example, I'll throw one example: the utilization of deception, cyber deception methodologies in an operational technology environment, OT networks. This is a challenge, a technological challenge, which is not yet fully mitigated, and it's very essential to the protection, or might be essential for the protection of critical infrastructure in the energy sectors. And this is an example to a challenge, a specific challenge that falls under category 1, the development of new tools and technologies.
Okay, great. So Roy, you mentioned a document. People are asking us on the Q&A box, how do they access the document? Where can they find it?
So actually, I can answer that question.
Okay, perfect.
Because maybe what I'm going to do, only 1 second, I will show, let me share the screen,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Let me share the presentation. 1 second only to show everyone where they can find the document. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry for running, but I want to show everyone. You can find the document here, either here at the Call for Proposals tab, or here, Guidelines and Forms, in the website of the Energy Center. Okay, it's a 2-page document, which provides, actually, Roy summarized that very nicely, but it gives much more details and examples of the type of activities or cyber issues that the stakeholders define in this call for proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, Eitan. You know what? If we already showing your presentation, can we go to the start? And you talked about a little bit about what's the Bird Foundation. And from what I know, this is a different type of call for companies, a different type of a grant than the regular activities funded by the Bird Foundation. Can you maybe start by telling us how is it different than what we already know about Bird Foundation projects?
Okay, I think the best way to answer that is by showing the 3 selected consortia for the first round, in which 3 topics were covered: fossil energy, energy
So these
storage,
are already done, right?
Yes, that's done.
No
but I
new
want,
call
but,
for...
right, but this gives that this is a very good way of showing the type of cooperation that this program or the Energy Center is looking for.
Okay.
You see more than at least 4 entities. That's the definition, okay? At least 4 entities, 2 from each side, from the US side and 2 from the Israeli side, at least 2. Now you need to have 2 leaders. In this case, we have universities, but you can have companies as leaders. And then you have consortium members. And in this case, in each one of these cases, you have more than 4, okay? But the minimum is 4. And as we said before, the 3 sectors that I showed before was already selected. And we're talking about this call for proposals, which is the energy, cyber, and cyber physical security in critical infrastructure. Okay. If I may add more
Sure,
details.
go ahead.
Okay. In this call for proposals, the maximum award for a consortium is $6 million. We are talking about a 3-year award, so three-year programs or project. There is a 50% cost sharing required from the awardees. The program may be extended for up to 2 additional years, and then it will become a 5-year program with a $10 million award. Although the original proposal, the one that needs to be submitted now, has to be for 3 years, and the budget in order to receive $6 million needs to be $12 million because of the 50% cost sharing. Okay. And I already said this, but it's maybe clearer in the slide. At least 2 more entities from the US and 2 or more entities from Israel. So it's at least 2. And in Israel, the team has to include at least 1 commercial company. Okay, and there's 1 US lead and 1 Israeli lead. So this is very different from compared with what we generally do at the Bear Foundation. At the Bear Foundation, generally, we fund projects between 2 companies. Okay.
And you mentioned that when we saw in the previous slides that we have universities and companies. Any preference, size of the company, the backgrounds, the capacity of the companies? Can you give us some information about who might be able to apply in more details?
So actually, it's very open and diverse. Companies can be large, small, startup companies. So there's no limitation there. The leaders may be companies or universities. Okay. National labs also can participate, but they cannot be at the lead. They can be a consortium member. And actually, let me go back to the slide with the selected consortia. You can see that the Argonne National Lab is actually a member in 2 of these consortia. Okay, in the fossil energy and the energy water nexus. So, but you can have a very diverse set of members. If you look at this carefully, you'll see that there are small companies, large companies, and also interesting, for example, in the energy water nexus, you see utilities. So a utility can also be a member. And for this specific call for proposal, it may be even very relevant to have a utility as a member in order to perform, let's say, actual implementation of solutions. Okay,
great. Well, you know, we've been holding a few webinars until now about other bird foundations, call for companies. And one of the questions that keep coming to us all the time is, we see the consortium, we see this group of companies, US-based and Israeli-based companies that are working together. And people keep asking us, and I'm sure our audience would like to know, how do we find partners? Where can we find them?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, because in many cases, we have US entities looking for partners in the Israeli side or vice versa. So let's actually focus on this specific call, okay? Because it's a little bit different. We have a team working very hard to help potential applicants to find partners. Let's start by mentioning Maya Vardi-Shoshani, who is close to you in the West Coast in California. She can be certainly a point of contact. We have also people in the East Coast, and we have a person in Austin, Texas now, and we have people in Israel, at least one with a very high level of expertise in cyber. And all these people, including the BIRD team, are trying to help companies and universities that are looking for partners or to form a consortium to match with someone else, okay? So matchmaking. So the best way to do this is to contact one of us, and the contact information you can certainly share with the participants. I think it's better to share Maya's contact first. She can distribute that to one of us, okay? So because it's true, we have some entities in the US that they can find partners in the US, and it's not so easy sometimes to find the matching part in Israel. So given the timeline, which we have not talked about, but it's not very long, if someone wants to do that, they have to do it immediately.
Right. So just to repeat what Eitan just mentioned, there are 3 bird representatives in the US. We have Maya Vadi Shoshani, who is here in the West Coast. She's here in California. I know Maya is also watching this webinar. Maybe you can share in the Q&A your email address, but definitely you can also reach out to the CICC, and we will be happy to share her contact information. We also want to mention the other 2 bird representatives in the US. We have Shiri Koren. She's based in Austin, which Eitan mentioned, and she is responsible on this program. And there is also Andrea, who is based in New Jersey, and she is responsible on the East Coast. We'll be happy to share their contact information with anyone who has interest to be part of a potential consortium and find partners. And again, it doesn't matter if it's Israeli companies looking for US-based partners or the other way around. We are here to help everyone. You know, there is a question for you, Roy, in our Q&A box about you know, your office. Can you be part of the consortium?
I already answered that. I said no.
Okay.
I will say this though, and Eitan can correct me. We would be very happy to assist in every way we can to the winning consortium. So it of course depends on the exact direction that the consortium will take and will be approved. But we will most certainly welcome dialogue with the winning consortium and see how we can help. So we cannot join before as be part of the proposal, but we would be very happy to support this initiative not only in the process of the choice and but after that. They said we have some public assets of our own, and we will be very happy to reach some sort of mutual beneficial interaction with the winning consortium.
That's very true and appropriate. Actually, if you look at let's say DOE parts of DOE that are very focused on certain topics like natural gas, they will certainly be connected and in the loop during the time of the program, and so the Israeli side. So after the selection, there's no question that the stakeholders, and in that sense, although the Israeli Cyber Directorate is not a formal stakeholder, in the case of the cyber topic, they are very much like a stakeholder. Okay. Okay,
great. So the deadline for the call of proposals, of course, is at the end of November. It's November 30th, which leaves us in 2 months and a week. Eitan, this question is for you. Can you walk us through the process and explain to us how it's going to work?
Okay, no problem. So let me start again with this slide. All the information for submission is here, guidelines and forms. And it's very important to look there. There is a handbook, which is a comprehensive submission handbook, in which you can find the template for the submission, for the proposal. The deadline, as you said, is November 30. There's an upload system or a submission system in which you can upload a draft of the full proposal. You can even upload a draft of the executive summary, which is part of the proposal, even a month before, let's say until mid-October, you can do that. This is a very interactive process. So once you have a consortium, even if it's not completed, but it's you're working, you're looking to submit, you should have a very strong interaction with the team, okay? Because we can be very helpful in explaining how to do things. And but in essence, the idea is that you have to prepare this full proposal by November 30, and all the instructions are on the website, and they're very clear.
Okay. You mentioned a website. Just one second, Eitan. I'm going to ask Maya to type in the Q&A chat box the address for the website. It's
here. You have it.
You can see it here. It's us-isr-energycenter.org. I repeat, us-isr-energycenter in one word, .org. And we will have it also typed in the Q&A box for you. Yes, Eitan, I'm sorry.
Oh, fine. So I only wanted to add that, for example, preparing the budgets, all that process may seem a little bit complex, but actually at the end of the day, it's quite straightforward. As again, I say, I repeat, if help is needed, we are always available to support that effort. Okay.
So we have some questions in the Q&A box that relates to some points that you guys mentioned earlier. So first of all, we saw universities, we saw utilities, we saw some startups and other companies in the consortium and what you mentioned. So we have two questions that relate to that. First of all, there is a question, could individuals be part of a consortium, or it has to be a registered entity? Can they participate as consultants or be part of a thinking group?
No, they need to be their company or a research institution, a register. An individual who is not a company cannot participate, okay, as a consultant. He can join, he or she can be a subcontractor to one of the participants. Let's say that he or she has a very special skill, capability, or even an idea. It can be done by joining one of the companies and being a subcontractor, or one of the universities and being a subcontractor.
Okay, great. And another question that comes in our Q&A box is regarding the IP. So this consortium works together to develop a program, a solution, something. What happens with, and then the Bird Foundation fund it? Who owns the IP? How does it work between them? Who signed the contract between the partners, and how it's being divided? Is it something that you are getting involved in?
Okay. So first of all, let me start by saying that the Bird Foundation doesn't own any of the IP. The IP is owned by the proposals, okay?
By the by the group, the consortium group.
Okay, but here is the point. There are three contracts. Let me talk about the one that deals with the IP. The one that deals with the main one that deals with the IP is what we call the Consortium Agreement. It's an agreement between the parties, the partners, that deals with all the issues that relate to IP sharing. Okay, that's one. And that's where the consortium members decide how to deal with their IP, background IP, produced IP, everything that relates to IP rights.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are two contracts, one between the US leader and the Bird Foundation, and one between the Israeli leader and the Bird Foundation. And those are the contracts that relate to the whole program, and the funding is provided to the leaders. Each leader distributes the funding to its members. Okay, so there's one contract with the US leader and one contract with the Israeli leader. Now, within those contracts, there is no requirement or issues that relate to IP, except for some very standard language that can be actually found on our website as well, if someone wants to take a look at that. But in essence, there's no ownership, IP ownership by the Bird Foundation.
Okay, thank you, Eitan, for that. I have one more question for you, Eitan. You mentioned the big word of funding. Can you elaborate a little bit more about how much money, how long it takes to receive the funds? Is it a grant? What happens with commercialization at the end? Are we seeking commercialization?
Yes.
Can you elaborate?
Of course. First of all, very good question, because in this case, that's another difference between the Energy Center and the Bird Foundation. In this program, the funding is a grant, okay? And I will repeat the number, but it's a grant, as opposed to the Bird Foundation. In the Bird Foundation, we have actually a conditional grant in which there is a repayment mechanism. Here, there's no repayment, it's a grant. Now the grant, but there's a cost sharing requirement, okay? So if the proposal is $12 million total, the maximum grant will be $6 million, okay? So there's a cost sharing requirement, and I can explain more about the cost sharing. But that $6 million is what is on the table for the winner, okay? And I think I said it, I will repeat, but there's also a possibility of extending this 2 more years, and it will become $10 million. But the original grant will be $6 million. And that is divided between the US team and the Israeli team. There is a requirement that it would be close to 50-50, but it doesn't have to be exactly 50-50. It can be also, as let's say, the maximum difference can be 60-40, but approximately half-half. And then the funding is distributed once the contract is signed. There is a payment schedule, which we start with a down payment, and then it goes through the 3 years. I'm not going to provide all the details here, but it's very convenient and simple to understand. Okay, but it starts with a down payment once the contract with the Bird Foundation is signed.
Okay, great. So just to repeat, we are looking for a co-sharing in terms of the funds. Means that the consortium need to fund about half of the overall project, and then the Bird Foundation will provide something up. There is a potential for up to $10 million in grant.
Up to six origin. Up to six in the first. This is up to six in the
first. Okay. In the first proposal, with a potential to get a little bit, some additional funds. This is a fund, so there is no need to repay that.
It's a grant. It's a grant.
It's a grant. Fantastic.
Right.
And I just want to
Sharon, let me add one little piece of information.
Sure.
The cost sharing, the 50% cost sharing is not required by every single member, but is required at the level of the leaders. Okay, it means that when we look at the total budget of the leader, it has to be with 50% cost sharing. That I say because there are some entities like US DOE national labs that may have problems with cost sharing. But since we already have gone through 3 contracts, we have now a lot of experience in solving those issues. Okay.
Okay, great. So going back to the submission process and looking at the slide that we have on the screen right now. So there is, first of all, there is a draft that needed to be submitted. That needed to be submitted by the Energy Cyber online website. You can also find the link for that at on the Bird Foundation website. So there are two ways you can find the link.
On the Energy Center website. On the Energy Center website.
Yes. And for those of you who did not see when we shared the links before, you can go to the Q&A section, and this is where you will find the full list of topics that we're looking for, and with this call for companies. You can also find the actual call for proposals. So there are links on the Q&A chat for you to look at. There is a question regarding the fact that till now, with the other three consortiums that were built, we saw the leadership of research institutes. And Roy talked about real hands-on solutions that you're looking for. And we're looking for a consortium which is a mix of companies and utilities and research institutes. This is an open question to any of you that can help us with this. Is there a reason why you chose leadership by academic institutions? Is there a must for them to be part of it? Or are you looking more for a real life, actual solutions?
So let me answer that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So let's not be misled. The fact that 6 universities were selected there at the leadership, it's not a requirement of the program. That's the way it came out. And if you look at this slide, I have this slide here on the screen because it's very important to understand that what is required in a program, in a good proposal, is a mix of very, I would say, practical solutions, innovative, but practical solutions that lead to demonstrations of cybersecurity technology. Even if you see the first statement, it says at relevant end user sites.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking about basic research, okay? We're talking about, at the end of the day, practical solutions. Also that have a strong potential of being commercialized. Maybe not immediately after the 3 years, but the other part of the let's say of the requirement or of the spirit of the center is that you can have a combination. You may have a very practical main path, and then you may have other activities, including, for example, workforce training or student exchange, PhD, postdoctoral exchanges. So imagine, that's why this is called a center and not a project, okay? So a nice proposal should have a combination of activities, but certainly it should have practical and let's say with potential of commercialization proposals.
Great, thank you. Other two very practical questions that are coming from our audience. The first one is about the submission process. So we saw that the first step is to submit a draft. Now, by calling it a draft, does it mean that there is a feedback and there will be a second chance to submit the final proposal?
So if you, the slide read recommended, okay? It's not a must to submit the draft. The draft is a stage to help get feedback. That's exactly the point. If you have enough time and you submit a draft, you cannot submit the draft 2 days before the deadline because we will not be able to give a feedback. But if you submit a draft 2 weeks before the deadline, we will certainly be able to give some feedback. And this will not be a review. It will not be a formal review, but it will be feedback to what you're preparing. Okay. And this is only recommended. It's not a must. Okay.
Okay. Great. So just to repeat what Eitan said, there is a recommendation to submit as soon as possible a draft if you want to get some feedback, an actual feedback from someone who reviews that. I urge you to connect with one of the bird representative here in the US or in Israel, so they can know that you submit a draft and make sure that if there is enough time, someone will review it and go back to you with some recommendations about this draft. Thank you so much, Eitan, for explaining that. Another question is also, it's a very practical question to any of you, and it's about assuming that there is, so if anyone, there's a consortium that would like to submit a proposal, what are the financial reporting requirements to explain sustained costs? In case of audit, what info a company needs to present?
Okay, so I hope I can read. I'm reading the question also, so I hope I understand well. After the program is started, every 6 months there is a reporting requirement, which is a joint technical reporting and separate financial reporting from each leader. Okay, and the audit, there will be audits, but those audits don't happen every 6 months. They will happen probably every couple of years, and in those audits they have to, the proposers or the consortium has to show, the leaders actually have to show, it's a very routine audit, normal audit, in which you have to show that what you reported was actually expended. Okay, so the expenses, all expenses, and the time used by employees or researchers. So it's a very normal and standard audit.
Okay, great. I know that there is someone who mentioned that there is a group of cybersecurity researchers in St. Louis that are interested. Again, the contact information for the Bird Foundations and for the email of Maya is in the Q&A box. Please reach out to her directly and she will guide you about the submission. Again, the list of the bird representatives can be found obviously on the Bird Foundation website, and you can always reach out to us. And you know what? I have an idea. So following this webinar, we will send an email to everyone who is on the call. And we'll have the email information for everyone that might be able to help you. So if you scroll up on the Q&A box, you will find the email information for Maya and also the website address where you can find the exact list of topics and of course the call for proposals. We are very close to the end of the hour. I'm sure we can sit here and talk some more about this opportunity. Nate, do you have any last advice for companies that have interest in this project?
I mean, other than this initiative is a really high priority for the department. Our senior leadership, including the Secretary of Energy, us this program with some regularity. So we're very supportive, and obviously the Bird Foundation handles the details, and Eitan is the one who to direct most of the questions to, but don't have any doubt that this has very strong institutional support here at DOE. Okay,
thank you, Nate. Roy, any last advice for companies that have interest in this program?
I think the most important advice is not to wait and not to hesitate contacting the Bird team. We, of course, also are at their disposal of the Bird team, and I urge anyone who was intrigued by this opportunity to check it out and see how the BERT people can maybe connect him with other partners or give him feedback on what he thinks he can do and whether it's appropriate or not. It's a very exciting opportunity. The deadlines are a bit short, so get to work, as I say.
Mm-hmm.
I very much look forward to seeing avid participation, a lot of high-quality proposals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Eitan, both questions are asked for you. Any last word of advice?
Okay, first of all, I want to thank you for organizing the webinar. And I want to thank very much, of course, Nate and the DOE for all their leadership, but also we need to mention the Ministry of Energy and the Israeli Innovation Authority and the Israeli side, who are not in the panel, but of course they're our Israeli stakeholders, and they're very significant for everything we do. At the end of the day, the selection is done by DOE, the Ministry of Energy, and the Israel Innovation Authority, okay, jointly, in an executive committee. So that's one, and I want to thank Roy, who has become a great partner in making this happen. And of course, hopefully we gave some good information, and anything else you need, please feel free to contact us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing all this information. I want to remind to our audience, this session was recorded. You can find it probably within an hour on the CICC YouTube channel. We will also happy to send you a link to the recording, and if Eitan allows us also to share some of his slides. We will also share the contact information for the BERT Foundation representatives in the US. Don't forget, you can go online and look at the BERT Foundation's website, where you will find all this information and also the contact information for their representatives. I want to thank also the Israeli Consulate to the Northwest for supporting our event and helping us in connecting Israeli and US-based companies, institutions, and any other stakeholders. I want to thank Nate from the DOE for his insights and support for the program. Of course, Roy, to you also in Israel for your input to the discussions and support of this program, and Eitan for your leadership for promoting this type of collaborations. We are in the month of the Jewish holidays, so I want to take also the opportunity to say happy new Jewish year to whoever is celebrating. Thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate your time, and I wish good luck to anyone who is going to submit a proposal. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.